You guys really liked the first debunk video I made, so hey, we're gonna bring you an even longer one. I hope you enjoy. But essentially, Ultimate Joker is back, and he is claiming Insomniac's Spider-Man is not comic accurate. And oh boy, I can't wait to see what batshit crazy things he says. I mean, he's totally not gonna insult the audience or anything, right? Right? Anyways, I won't keep you guys anymore, let's just begin.
Insomniac's Spider-Man isn't comic book accurate at all. Now, whether you want to view that as a good or bad thing is up to you.
I mean, personally, it doesn't bother me either way, whether it's accurate or not, because at the end of the day, this is just an adaptation. They can take the source material and tweak it to make it however they want, whilst remaining faithful to the original IP. This is their verse, they can do what they want with it.
But it's pretty much a fact that it's objectively not like its source material at all.
It's not like the source material at all. I'm not even gonna humor that statement.
Mostly when looking at the second game. I just find the double standard of all to be quite funny under the context that I've seen various other pieces of superhero media be lambasted for straying from its source material.
No, the only double standard here is you, because I'm gonna take a guess that you're gonna ride off Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Web of Shadows, and all that other stuff that you did in the previous video, even though those aren't 100% comic accurate either. At the end of the day, who cares about this whole comic accuracy thing? I don't see why this video was even something you felt needed to be made.
Even though they only strayed from its source material by a much smaller degree, such as a large number of DC movies like Zack Snyder's BVS and his other films.
So you admit that Batman vs Superman and other films stray from the comics and the source material, yet you don't make videos that are 25 minutes long on those for some reason? Almost as if he just hates the Insomniac verse.
X-Men 3 with minor changes to the Phoenix Force. And most importantly, other Spider-Man stories like the Raimi Spider-Man movies with dumb regurgitated takes like, organic web shooters! Even though that's such a minor detail that Sam Raimi gave a reasonable explanation for.
I actually agree with him here. Complaining about Tobey having, synthetic webbing and, basing your entire argument off that would inherently be dumb, but at the end of the day, that is just one of the many differences between Tobey's Spider-Man and other Spider-Man. It's an adaptation, they can do what they want with it. Just because they make changes to it, it's not a problem. Although, that's a minor difference. And I'm gonna take a guess, he's got a lot more to go over.
Or yet another example with people complaining about Venom's appearance and claiming he's not big enough, even though he's still bigger than Spider-Man, which should be the only thing that matters. But anyway, before I get carried away on this tangent,
I will die on this hill that the Sam Raimi Venom is actually pretty good. Not as good as the comic versions and nowhere near the best villain in the trilogy, but he's still pretty good.
Let's get into Insomniac's further strafes, starting with their first game. That didn't stray as far as the second game. Others have already said this before, but what can I say? Dumb and still argue it.
Ultimate Joker may be many things, but at the very least he's consistent, because we're not even 5 minutes in, and he's already insulting the audience of this product. He's consistent, what can I say? Even if he's a bit of a dick.
Do you guys know who, Mary Jane is? She's supposed to be pretty, unlike... But she also has a job that takes advantage of her beauty, such as modeling, acting, or singing. Well, Insomniac decided that she gets to take Peter Parker's Daily Bugle job instead.
I have an actual mind-blowing revelation for you guys. I guarantee you've no idea what I'm about to say. But what if, stay with me okay, what if this was an adaptation of the comics and they instead gave her different qualities whilst also making her the love interest to Peter Parker? Like, this isn't the 60s anymore. Women aren't just eye candy to be ogled at. They're allowed to have their own talents that go beyond looking good, guys.
Now, I know these cucks who often just pretend they read comics will scrounge for an excuse and say, oh, she was a journalist, by listing off another continuity such as Mary Jane from the Ultimate comics.
Okay, so she's a journalist in the Ultimate comics, so wouldn't Insomniac MJ therefore be comic accurate to the Ultimate version of MJ? You see what I mean about this whole comic accuracy thing? It's so fucking vague, like it could apply to literally anything.
Who was studying for it, but that's it. And as said in my review, that shit doesn't really hold up as an excuse.
It's not an excuse, it's just a fact that she was training to be a journalist in one form or another in the comics, even if it wasn't the main 616 universe. Yet you're saying that they're not comic accurate for doing the same shit in this game, and its adaptation in its own separate portion of the Spider-Man mythos. So, I don't get what you're complaining about.
When most of the characters in that game are clearly not based off of the Ultimate comics, such as Peter not being a child along with Peter and Black Cat not having a huge age gap, etc.
Yeah, because once again, this is an adaptation. It's not ripping straight from one adaptation of the comics, or media, or live action, or whatever. The beauty about an adaptation is that you can take bits and pieces that you like and combine it into your own narrative to tell a new story about it, you know? Fuck.
I don't think that using this comic book accuracy excuse holds up when you start claiming they took from another continuity but only chose to do it with one character. On its own merits, it's also kinda dumb since they strayed from the source material only to rip off Lois Lane.
I mean, I don't really need to say anything here, because by his own logic, he's just debunked himself, because he admitted that MJ was a journalist in one form or another in the comics at some point, even if she was training for it, so I don't really need to say anything here.
And add nothing of original substance to it, except for a toxic, bitchy personality where she bitches about being saved as she sneaks into criminal hideouts and military bases.
How much do you guys want to bet that he's just going to gloss over the arc between MJ and Peter in this game and only focus on the bad parts of MJ's personality, claiming that she's bitchy or whatever? Like, you do realize the entire arc between these two is that, number one, MJ acknowledges that it's difficult for her to be the one who always needs to be saved, and Peter acknowledges that he can't just do every single battle by himself, they have to work together. They're essentially working away their differences to become a stronger team. Like, did you play the PS4 game?
MCU She-Hulk is peak Martin Scorsese cinema in comparison to this shit.
I'm fucking done. I could end the video right here and there. He just said that MCU She-Hulk is better than MJ in this game. MCU She-Hulk. You know the bitch who mocks Bruce Banner, the guy with lifelong trauma? You know the bitch who can't win her own battles, so she climbs out of her own universe to change the rules just to suit her own narrative? Yeah, the bitch who twerks on camera unironically.
But, yeah, apart from Lois Jane, apart from Mary Jane, I will admit that comic book accuracy wasn't drastically far off with most of the characters in the first Insomniac Spider-Man game. Aside from minor differences like the origins of Miles, Rhino's new tech direction, which I don't dig too much, or more goofy decisions like Hammerhead becoming a cyborg. Although there's some other dumb moments that are also unlike the source material, such as Spider-Man getting his ass kicked by Silver Sable twice.
Oh yeah, because Peter's totally gonna be going all out against a peak human. You know, the same guy who can stop a punch from Rhino, can lift up fucking trains, and can even fight 5 supervillains at the same time, to a degree. Oh yeah, you really think that guy is gonna be going all out against a peak human?
Even though Sable is just a human being with pistols, and has never beat Spider-Man one-on-one in any adaptation, whether it be books as far as I know, and a bunch of Spider-Man TV shows Sable has also appeared in.
In all honesty, dude, you need to shut up and stop taking feats out of context. Like, you think just because Peter gets pressed up against a wall, that equates to him losing a fight? Like, he's obviously not going to be going all out against a regular peak human, especially one that he's working with in the campaign.
Black Cat is also more toxic and dislikable than her usual appearance. Check out my review of the first game if you want more plot details about them.
Fucking Christ, Joker. I'm not even halfway through part 2 of my response to you yet. Why do you have to leak the next video for me to look at? A review of Marvel Spider-Man's story. Oh, fucking Christ. That's gonna be a fun one to go through, isn't it?
But anyway, with the first game out of the way, let's get on to Miles Morales, where things may be a little more drastically different, but not really. Unlike Lois Jane, I don't mind this drastic 180. Tinkerer, who's some old man Spider-Man villain who's really good at inventing things and various deadly gadgets. To be honest, I don't think much of him apart from remembering his fairly important role in Spider-Man Web of Shadows and Ultimate Alliance 2. But yeah, in Spider-Man Miles Morales' game, they made her a young, bussin' black girl, genius with personal ties to Miles Morales, as they were childhood friends. Now this is admittedly a strafe, but I don't think the 180 is as bad or as drastically different as Lois Jane, or Venom and Kraven, who I'll get to later, but yeah.
Hang on a freaking minute. So, in the comics, Tinkerer is an old white man, and Insomniac changed him to be a young black girl, and you're saying that this isn't a problem? Yet you're willing to criticize them changing MJ's personality, but keeping her looks vaguely similar. I'm just gonna say it, the only reason he likes Finn is because she's somewhat attractive. Which again, it's so hypocritical.
Unlike Lois Jane, these changes made with Tinkerer didn't turn her into a ripoff of another character as far as I know.
No, they didn't, although the changes to MJ didn't do that either. Although, yeah, I 100% agree, the changes to Tinkerer were not all that bad. They just changed the gender, made her about 60 years younger, and changed her ethnicity and backstory.
And these changes had narrative purposes, as they gave Miles Morales a personal villain of his own. Tinkerer's changes may be objective in terms of appearance, but at the end of the day, she's still a smart person who makes violent gadgets that ends up being a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, but the way that she does it is also completely different. Oh, and the fact that she's a she and not a he, you kinda just missed that part out.
Just with a tad bit of sympathy added. Not as drastic of a difference as a bunch of MCU movie differences, or Insomniac Spider-Man 2, which we're about to jump into.
And the MCU changing things is bad because why? Again, it's an adaptation. They can do what they want within reason. If they want to change things, completely fine. You have no issue with the fact that they changed Tinkerer's appearance fundamentally from the ground up. Yet you're gonna shit all over Spider-Man 2 for the second time in, the videos that I've covered. Brace yourselves, motherfuckers. We ain't getting out of this one alive.
Now, Insomniac Spider-Man 2 really has me agitated over these comic book accuracy double standards.
Yet you just praised Tinkerer even though they changed her completely and you had no issue with it?
More than the other examples like the MCU. Let me clarify that I'm not one of those nerd emojis who complain about comic book accuracy.
Bro, shut the fuck up. You wouldn't be making this video if you didn't give a shit about comic accuracy. You can feck right off of this high horse of yours, thinking that you're objective or whatever. This is clearly the most biased Billy Blue bollocks video I've ever covered, and you know it. Just shut up.
As I don't really see Tinker as a big deal.
You bigoted piece of shit. The only reason he likes the changes made to Tinkerer is because she's physically attractive to an extent. What is this guy? How does anyone take this guy seriously? 800 fucking subscribers. 800 fucking morons sub to this guy. Wow.
I'm going to raise an eyebrow at dumb hypocrites who bitched at Spider-Man 3 for its comic book accuracy in regards to Venom, but then praise the even less accurate Spider-Man 2's progressive politics riddled story.
No worries, dude. I'd be more than happy to invite you to the Discord server and we can do a collab in debunking this video. It's called Peter Parker in the Insomniac games isn't comic accurate at all. I think you'd join forces with me in debunking this video because by your own logic, you're a hypocrite. Oh wait, I'm currently debunking that right now, aren't I?
And just to shut up the bitch-ass cucks who pretend to read comics, here's me holding the two most important omnibuses when it comes to the source material behind Spider-Man 2.
Once again, insulting the audience and also contradicting your point, because I thought you said that MJ was, a journalist or whatever in the Ultimate comics, yet apparently that doesn't apply to Spider-Man 2, even though she still is a journalist in Spider-Man 2, well, up until the end of the Scream boss fight, where it's implied that she gets fired.
Spider-Man Birth of Venom, which contains all origin content of the symbiote, whether it be Peter's relationship with the symbiote or Eddie Brock's. I've owned this book for over 10 years, and then we have the most critically acclaimed Kraven story, if not most critically acclaimed Spider-Man story, Kraven's Last Hunt. Let's start out with Kraven. I'm sort of willing to let his gang of mercenaries slide for the sake of gameplay, of course, despite him never having or needing that in the past. Isn't the whole point of the hunt to, hunt them down yourself like the prey he sees them as?
Were you dropped on your head of something when you bought this game? Assuming that you even did buy this game, because literally every single time Kraven fights someone in this game, it's by himself. Whether it's the random goon at the start, whether it's Scorpion, whether it's Spider-Man, whether it's Black Suit Spider-Man, or whether it's Venom, he always 1v1s his opponent. Sure, he has prep time, but I mean, that's what he does. He 1v1s everyone, what do you mean?
But anyway. Beyond that, Nick, there's more differences that are mostly in the way this guy now physically operates. People may be calling it Giga, but Kraven is too cracked to the point where it sort of destroys the concept of his character.
How is he cracked at all within the context of the verse? You do realize that people with no superpowers at all, like Wilson Fisk, can ragdoll Spider-Man through concrete walls, ceilings, and even dense steel pipes. So you take a peak human like that, give him herbal steroids that are implied by Spider-Man himself in the party mission to make him quote-unquote freakishly strong. This is a fictional verse, the standards are different, and you're complaining about that? Do you not understand what you're on about? You're the comic buff, apparently. You of all people should know this.
Kraven is now powerful enough to overpower certain strong-as-hell characters via brute force. He overpowers Scorpion with ease, even though Scorpion has definitely been betrayed as someone who's nearly as strong or even as fast as Spider-Man. At the very least, he wouldn't be far off based upon what I've seen in general adaptations.
Remember how I said this guy was consistent? Once again, he's using external media to justify the power levels of a character within this specific media he's criticizing, even though, as I've said, characters and power scaling and all that other shit can be different within different verses. There are some versions of Spider-Man that can't break out of steel fucking chains, and you're gonna try say that this guy is comparable to that? What are you on about?
Most importantly, the comics. I double checked what I already thought, and yeah, Scorpion definitely scales to being around the level of Spider-Man, so there's no way Kraven is beating him up via brute force in less than a minute.
At this point, I'm genuinely convinced that he's allergic to the Insomniac verse, because you could have played the PS4 game and recorded the cutscenes and found that information out yourself. You didn't have to go to the comics where the characters are different. What do you have against that? Also, why is it so hard to believe that Kraven can effortlessly kill someone who base Peter has trouble dealing with? You know Kraven, how he fought Symbiote Spider-Man? With Symbiote Spider-Man being stronger than basically everyone in the PS4 game based on the Cage feat? And you're wondering why he beat someone that base Peter fights?
Especially under the context of the fact that Scorpion is a villain who wouldn't hold back like Spider-Man does. And speaking of Spider-Man, he folds Spidey too! Just as fast as he folds Scorpion!
Yeah, and later on in the story, he goes on to fight Symbiote Spider-Man and even Venom to an extent. This is clearly not a normal version of Kraven. He's clearly super fucking strong, and if you paid attention to the game and the cutscenes and all the rest of it, assuming that you even own it to begin with, based on some of the dumb shit you've said in the past and likely the future, you would know this.
Before we get into how wrong this all is, let's get into what Kraven usually is.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. This guy has a romanticized version of Spider-Man, his lore and his villains in his head, and he will criticize anything and falsely accuse anything of being bad just because they aren't meeting his expectations. I mean, fuck, he criticizes Venom saying that, oh, it's Eddie Brock's character, and criticizes Scream because apparently, it's a different character or whatever. It's an adaptation. You know what they are? They take the source material and adapt it.
Kraven is a human being who's borderline an enhanced human being via the herbs and potions he takes. Now, of course, these herbs and potions make him stronger and faster, but it never really takes him to the point where he's matching and nearly killing Spider-Man in under a minute.
Remember all the villains that Peter has fought? Scorpion, Rhino, Mr. Negative, Doc Ock? Yet when Peter refers to Kraven's strength, he refers to him as being freakishly strong, almost as if he's stronger than those villains, almost as if this isn't the typical version of Kraven, almost as if he's confirmed by the writers to be superior to any villain Peter has fought in the past. Almost as if it's a different version of the fucking character.
I know some copers will try to make the excuse of Spider-Man pulling his punches, but that doesn't justify a strong and fast character like Spider-Man losing in under a minute to Kraven when he should have already been ready for Kraven's apparent Spider-tier strength when he discovered that he overpowered Scorpion with ease.
Yeah, and are you gonna go into the massive amount of prep time that Kraven had against Spider-Man? Like, let's be honest, he's thinking, according to this guy's logic, Peter having at most hours or days to prepare for Kraven, and all he has to go off of is a 2-minute clip that doesn't even give proper context to the fight. He thinks that that is adequate prep time, compared to Kraven, who has weeks, months to prepare for Spider-Man, has extensively studied not just Peter, but also his entire rogues gallery, and in the Peter versus Kraven boss fight, we see extensively that Kraven knows what he's talking about and has done his homework on Spider-Man. You think a 2-minute video is gonna compare to that?
What's so giga about Kraven is that he's a human pushing his limits and enhancing himself as much as he can in tandem with using various tricks, tools, and gadgets to try to get the edge over Spider-Man and achieve the unobtainable goal of beating him despite his human limitations.
It's funny how you bring up alternate adaptations of Spider-Man, such as the Spider-Man Free game, even though, Kraven's Last Hunt is a key theme and the source, if you like, for this game's story. So, the false equivalencies that this guy is so guilty of doing, well, there's another. He's looking at one Spider-Man media, even though it doesn't follow the comic that Spider-Man 2 is basing its story around, and using that to justify his points, even though it doesn't make any sense.
I know he's stronger than regular humans, but still, it ain't Spider-Man tier, a little above Captain America tier, at best.
Can you prove how strong Captain America is in the Insomniac verse? Can you prove Captain America even exists in the Insomniac verse? Can you prove any of that, or are you just making baseless claims based on alternate versions of the character compared to the Insomniac version? Seriously, dude, shut up. Kraven in this game is clearly not your average human. Also, please stop trying to lowball him saying, oh, he's only an enhanced human. Literally every single villain Peter has fought in the PS4 game is an enhanced human, to greater or lesser extents. Please stop trying to use this to lowball the characters.
Point is, Kraven never really beats Spider-Man. In Kraven's Last Hunt, it's made quite clear through text in the book itself that he got lucky and only beat Spider-Man via flukes, like Spider-Man just so happening to be tired around the time Kraven made a surprise attack. After knocking out Spider-Man, he buries Spider-Man and takes his mantle to prove himself superior. There's this evil monster called Vermin, who was so tough that Spider-Man and Captain America had to team up to fight him. Kraven, with the Spider-Man mantle, sets out to beat this creature that Spider-Man couldn't beat by himself, all as an attempt to prove himself superior. Little does he know that he would only beat Vermin because Vermin was in a hungered state. Spider-Man later climbs out of the grave in a dazy state and sets out to get back at Kraven, despite the state he's in. Kraven doesn't entertain fighting him again as he already believes he's proven himself, and instead reveals Vermin, who he's captured, and sets loose against Spider-Man. Spider-Man is about to lose to Vermin, probably due to Peter's tired state, and then Kraven stops Vermin from killing Spider-Man, as Kraven believes his point has been made. But as I delved into, the one time Kraven did win was pretty muddled and lucky for best words. Oh, and just to clarify, Spider-Man's black suit in Kraven's Last Hunt isn't the symbiote, it's just a regular suit with the same design.
Okay, so how does any of this have anything to do with Spider-Man 2? Again, this is an adaptation, it's loosely based on that storyline. Vermin doesn't even exist in the Insomniac verse. The Spider-Man black suit that he uses in the Insomniac game is the symbiote and not the cloth suit. you're going over this comic, but there are so many aspects of it that don't apply to the game, so why are you assuming that the power levels should also apply to the game? I just don't get this logic.
But anyway, the whole questionable scaling of him now being able to curb stomp Spider-Man is something Insomniac just did as a cheap way to hype up this villain.
Oh yeah, because they clearly didn't hype him up enough already by implying that he already has extensive knowledge of Peter's rogues gallery and is hunting them down. Like how he's killed 4 members of the Sinister Six at least. 4 confirmed kills against villains who have nearly killed Peter in individual fights earlier in his life. Like, how the hell is that not raising the stakes? If anything, killing Peter is just the cherry on top.
I don't mind him putting up a fight or even killing the other Spider-Man villains, but it wouldn't go that easy with Scorpion. And he shouldn't even be beating Spider-Man, even without the black suit.
Why? Just because you say so? Again, it's an adaptation. They can do what they want with it.
In under a minute especially, without any additional traps or anything. Like, what chance did this guy in Kraven's intro even have? Kraven didn't even need to sneak up on him.
The entire point of the intro is that even skilled hunters are no match for Kraven. Like, the intro isn't displaying his power, it's displaying his tactics. Which is something that Kraven is known for even in the comics. Like, what are you trying to say?
Like, even Spectacular Spider-Man at least was smart enough to go all out and just give him powers, as he tried things the regular way first before doing so.
So how is turning himself into a literal werewolf-esque creature not a problem, but giving himself herbal steroids to make himself superhumanly strong to a ridiculous degree? Why is that suddenly a problem in the Insomniac games? I'm really not understanding this point.
But anyway, on its own merits, I could see some cool aspects of Insomniac's Kraven despite these blemishes, such as him being an honor-bound man who wants to go out with honor, and not just die of old age, similar to his books a tad bit. But I honestly find that it falls flat with strength being way too beyond human, such as him fighting a guy who stops trains. I'll reiterate that within this game, Spider-Man never beats Kraven. Not even Miles does. Kraven only loses to the symbiote, whether it be Peter wearing it or Harry, when he becomes Venom.
Yeah, almost as if the symbiote-empowered characters are the most powerful characters in the game, and indeed currently the verse. Why is this an issue again?
Don't even get me started on Peter Parker getting folded in nearly every 1v1 fight.
He literally saves Miles Morales from being Sandman's lunch in that fight, and even comes up with a plan to save potentially the entire city, so that's a very terrible example. Again, he doesn't get folded in every fight. By your own logic, in the previous video, he stalemated Rafe, so once again, by your own logic, you're chatting bollocks.
He literally doesn't have a single 1v1 win in the game when not working with Miles or the symbiote. This is a fact. Arguing with me is nothing but a good speedrunning tactic to making a fool of yourself.
Well, I seem to be doing a great job so far, if the reception's anything to go off of. Seriously guys, thank you for the performance of the last video, it really means a lot. But joking aside, like, why is it a problem? The villains in the second game were so much stronger than the first, as evidenced by the fact that he needs Miles or he needs the symbiote to combat them. Like, stop running with the narrative that he's nerfed. If you pay attention to these villains in the slightest, you would know that they're stronger.
But yeah, I wouldn't put Insomniac Kraven near his high-tier storytelling of Kraven's Last Hunt.
I would actually agree with this, but probably for different reasons. The issue that I have with Spider-Man 2's story overall is kind of the same issues that I have with Spider-Man 3's story, where I like each individual aspect in a vacuum, but when you try merge it all together, it just feels kind of rushed, and I would have preferred it if we had more time on certain plot points, like maybe if Venom, for example, had more screen time, I would have enjoyed that, but, you know, this is the game we got, so I agree it wasn't as good as the comics, but I still liked it.
Phew, what a deep doozy. Next we have Venom, who's probably the least accurate example I've ever seen in fiction just about.
Oh boy, this ought to be good.
You pretty much have to call him a different character. Although I don't find him to be bad on his own merits either, but he is objectively the least accurate. I may have all the knowledge in this book of mine, but this is so inaccurate that I don't even need this book. He's not Eddie Brock, which basically ends a debate.
Okay, and Venom wasn't Eddie Brock in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon either. Like, why is that a problem? Like, just because the human host is different, you're implying that it's... fuck me.
Harry has never been Venom in any of the comics. It's only happened in like some mid-Spidey MCU humor TV show. But beyond the differences in origin, he doesn't behave like Venom either, as he now immediately becomes a world-endangering threat instead of just being a Spider-Man villain with a bit of dark humor to him. This Venom doesn't have any humor to him at all, let alone being a bit of an anti-hero that certain people want him to be. He's basically now a Doomsday-esque villain. Like, people gave Tom Hardy's Venom crap for straying from the source material, which it undeniably did to a higher degree than the petty crap they gave Sam Raimi's Venom, but even Tom Hardy's Venom's differences from its source material isn't as drastic as Insomniac's Venom Doomsday.
I'm actually gonna cream myself if he says all this stuff about Insomniac's Venom, but then somehow defends Web of Shadows Venom, even though they do basically the same stuff. Oh, and remember in the previous video how Venom was like a skyscraper-sized monster? Yeah, I'd love to see him defend that. You see what I mean? Like, inevitably this whole accuracy argument just goes out the window. Everything about Venom in this game was great. His voice acting, his score, everything about him screamed intimidation. He was fantastic.
Don't even get me started on Sam Raimi's, which got a bunch of flack with reasons that were nitpicky and petty as hell, while Insomniac's version gets far less blowback. Is it because he's bigger? Is that all that matters? Well, I'll play your little size game and state that Insomniac's Venom is way bigger than comic book Venom than Raimi's Venom was smaller. The size difference is objectively bigger with Insomniac. Comic Venom is 6'3" and Topher Grace was 5'9", and Insomniac Venom is 10'5".
Okay, and why is this a problem? He's 10'5", who gives a fuck? The height changes so much. You can't even say this is consistent, because I mean, look at something like Transformers, where they deliberately changed the size of the characters just to make them badass in a single shot, even though it contradicts the actual size that these characters are canonically. I know that Transformers is a random ass example, but seriously, who is losing sleep over the height difference of these characters compared to the comic counterparts?
So yeah, you cuckballs still lose and end up being hypocrites within the confines of your own shitty pick-and-choose nitpick logic.
This coming from the guy who hates the fact that they changed MJ's job, yet they really like the fact that they changed Tinkerer's ethnicity, gender, age, and backstory. And I guess powers as well, because programmable matter is not the same as being very good at engineering stuff.
And speaking of Venom in games, I'll name off yet another hypocritical scenario involving Venom in Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I remember when some shitty, overrated, whiny YouTuber who over-exaggerates problems brought up
self-aware much?
A so-called con of the symbiote not being able to make multiple spawns in Web of Shadows. And then I saw a bunch of shitty nerds hive and copy and paste that shit as if it was a significant con or stray from the source material.
I mean, I would agree that it's a petty nitpick, but at the same time, you've got no leg to stand on when you're also making petty nitpicks about MJ, Venom, Kraven, and God knows who else you're gonna criticize in this video.
Sure, it's true, but, you know, for the sake of their amazing concept of the story, it's just something they added. I can treat it like some symbiote mutation, as Spider-Man himself states that something about the symbiote is different now.
Oh, turns out I was right. Not only is Web of Shadows not entirely comic accurate, but they even changed the source material to an extent, and would you look at that, he's defending it. Oh, but when Insomniac does it, it's not a big problem. Well, it's not a big problem, I should say, when they make a Tinkerer smoking hot, but when they actually try and make the characters more interesting, it's a problem. I can't wank myself to sleep over this redhead anymore.
But you know, these people will regurgitate something nitpicky like that, and then let Insomniac slide, but whatever. This shitty nitpick aside, Spider-Man Web of Shadows was very in line with the main 616 source material, such as the cool mission where Wolverine references a bunch of actual comic issues, some of which were actually in this omnibus of mine, along with other stories like when he first wore the black suit, etc.
So Web of Shadows referencing things is acceptable, but Insomniac doing the same thing isn't acceptable? Web of Shadows changing some things is acceptable, but Insomniac doing it is suddenly a massive problem that needs to be smited from existence? Fucking alright, mate.
Comic book accuracy is just one of the many one-ups that Web of Shadows has over Insomniac, in combination with it being a PS3 game that has faster swing speed than a PS5 game, and is also just a better game with combat on multiple levels, but anyway.
I'm not even gonna humor that argument. I mean, if you play both games side by side, it should be pretty apparent that the Insomniac's PS5 game is indeed better than Web of Shadows. Now, again, if you want to say the PS4 game or Miles Morales, then that's a more interesting debate. But the PS5 Spider-Man 2 game is pretty much the definitive Spider-Man game as far as gameplay goes. Story, yeah, it's not perfect by any means, but the gameplay is damn near perfection, and I'm very interested to see where they take it in the third game.
That just about covers Venom. I wish I was done, but there's more. Mary Jane is still in the second game, and now she's uglier than ever. Ugliest normal human under 30 I've ever seen, just about, to be honest. But anyway, on top of her being Lois Jane and having a bunch of bitchy personality traits,
I feel like this guy got rejected by a girl at some point in his life, and now he just associates any woman who is strong and independent as being bitchy. Seriously, when is she ever bitchy in this game, other than when she's bonded with the symbiote and it's bringing out the worst aspects of her? Like, seriously, what are you saying?
she is now a capable combatant that can take out Kraven's hunters, along with taking out a large number of symbiotes, including this one that's as big as Hulk. God, this game's writing is a fucking mess.
I love that he mentions MJ taking on a behemoth, but then he shows her running away from it in the gameplay. Like, I just love when people do that. They show stuff in the background that contradicts their points.
I'm not joking when I say I put She-Hulk above this shit. But anyway.
And there it is, the double down. Why should anyone ever believe anything you say ever again when you put that BS Mary Sue unlikable bitch over MJ? Like, is she the definitive version of MJ in this game and in this universe? I wouldn't say so, no. But she's really not that bad. Like, why do you like She-Hulk? Oh wait, I've got two very big reasons why you might like She-Hulk.
Blah blah blah, Mary Jane was never someone who was capable of pulling a Lara Croft Tomb Raider, despite their shitty attempt to provide a reason, when they said she trained with Silver Sable, even though that training didn't last anything more than half a month or so.
Okay, so you admit that she trained with one of the top tier fighters of the verse, and you're wondering why she's suddenly, like, Lara Croft? Like, you do realize this is fiction, people learn faster, the standards are different, and again, Silver Sable, as you mentioned previously, can even catch Spider-Man off guard. She's that good at fighting, so why is it so difficult to believe that MJ can take on low-tier symbiotes and stuff, especially when she has technology that counters them?
Mary Ray Skywalker Jane.
Fuck right off. You did not compare MJ to Ray Skywalker. How does anyone take this guy? Is this parody? Like, how does anyone take this guy seriously? 800 subscribers, I want to point out. 800 people think this guy is worth listening to.
Web of Shadows had a Mary Jane segment where she was wielding a gun too, but she wasn't 1v-dozening people, she was helping Spider-Man.
Now this is blatantly hypocritical because in the other video you criticized that MJ was helping both Peter and Miles take down Venom in the final battle, yet here you're gonna say, oh well, she wasn't doing anything, she was just doing XYZ. Fucking hypocrite.
Gameplay aside, we could canonically assume that Spider-Man was just guarding her overtime as she got shots off. Big difference from Insomniacs, which really can't be argued at all.
Yet he shows gameplay and cutscenes where Miles is clearly protecting MJ from the symbiotes. Seriously, video creation is not that hard to do, guys.
But anyway, beyond all of that shite, Mary Jane becomes infected and becomes Scream, who is a different character entirely.
Well, in the comics maybe, but this isn't the comics. It is an adaptation of the comics and things can be different. Please stop coping just because your favorite characters are different in this universe.
Unlike various others, I'm not going to pretend I've read every comic on all of these characters, but I do know that Scream isn't Mary Jane. She's Donna Diego, a person who volunteered herself for some government agency called the Life Foundation that wanted to make a team of symbiotes. But yeah, at this point, they might as well have just gave Mary Jane her own unique design, similar to what an actual good symbiote Spider-Man game did.
So it's okay for Web of Shadows to reference the comics, but it's not okay for the Insomniac verse to reference Scream, who is from the comics. Okay, sure.
With its characters such as Black Cat. But anyway, Lois Jane, Rey Skywalker, Scream beats Spidey at the end of the boss fight after bitching at him.
Are we doing this dance again? Where you're ignoring the context that Peter was weakened after removing the black suit? Oh, and also the fact that he's almost certainly holding back more than ever just because it's MJ and not a random thug? Like, or are you assuming that Peter is 100% going all out in every single situation? Do you just not understand fiction?
Scream never beat Spider-Man 1v1 in any story that I know of, so there's that.
And I would like to point out that in this game, the only reason she does as well as she does is because number one, she's a symbiote tier character, and number two, Peter was weakened and holding back. If you actually research the game properly, you would know this.
This game really wants to fold Peter Parker and give him a slower reaction time than MJ, on top of taking the guy who stops trains and then trapping him under a fridge.
Let's speedrun this. He and MJ react at the same time. He's not reacting to the attack, he's reacting to her safety. He doesn't get pinned under the fridge at all. He gets briefly stunned, knocked out, whatever you want to say, and then when he comes to, he instantly tosses the fridge like it's nothing, so hard that it cracks the wall. If you research this shit, you would know this. Oh, and also the fact that he was weakened when this happened, and also the fact that he's not wanting to piss off Venom, or risk doing anything that would endanger MJ. So, yeah, there's that as well.
This is more of a minor and less offensive change, but Harry is also briefly Agent Venom on top of being Venom.
This isn't an objective issue, you're just coping. Google adaptation, insert here, paste, done.
Agent Venom being someone who was supposed to be Flash Thompson, in a story that takes him from bullying a superhero to being like one. I like the concept. I didn't really hate Harry being a bit like this, but it's yet again nothing like the source material.
Okay, and are we gonna go over the legitimately good moments that Peter and Harry have together when he's Agent Venom, developing their bond and therefore making it all the more heartbreaking when the two eventually have to fight each other? Or are we just gonna gloss over all of that?
This is a change I loved for the sake of gameplay purposes, but Mr. Negative turns Peter Parker into Anti-Venom after getting rid of the original symbiote. It's a symbiote which doesn't affect the mind of its host, with Anti-Venom's most mainstream appearance being Spider-Man Edge of Time. Although this was something that Eddie Brock was turned into by Mr. Negative instead when it comes to the source material.
Okay, so this is referencing the comics, it's just that they're making Peter Anti-Venom instead of, Eddie Brock, because you said it yourself, Eddie Brock doesn't exist in this universe. Why is this a problem again?
The suit can cure people of various things like the symbiotes and actual diseases, although it only seems to work on symbiotes in this game. Although I find it very odd that Anti-Venom Spider-Man still ends up being curb stomped by Venom anyway.
Even though Peter is obviously holding back because Venom is the only thing keeping Harry alive, he does much better against Venom than Harry does, and he's ultimately the one to kill Venom and save Harry from the symbiote. Yeah, once again, could you imagine how this writing would be if this guy was writing it? Peter gets anti-venom, immediately one-shots Venom, kills his best friend, and then they all have a freaking party.
They really want to fold Peter, once again. I don't really know why Insomniac felt the need to mix up all the symbiote identities for no reason, such as deleting Eddie Brock, especially Scream, which just felt random.
Almost as if they're taking the source material and adapting it to suit their own story, you know, kind of what adaptations do. They basically take what the source material created and then just change it slightly, kind of like what Edge of Time did, which you seem to simp over. Oh, and also, you know, what happened with Tinkerer, which you seem to love because she was thick as fuck.
The bare bones logic, I'm guessing, is that Scream is someone who uses red hair in her combat occasionally, and Mary Jane is someone who's known for her red hair, so they just randomly put 2 and 2 together, I guess.
I will admit that it doesn't make a huge amount of sense why MJ became Scream of all people. Like, maybe she would just become, like, I don't know, a red symbiote or whatever. But at the same time, it's just a reference. You know, if they had to make MJ a symbiote, it would have appeased fans more by making her an established character. Again, they made Harry Osborn Venom. Is it really that far-fetched that they're going to make MJ Scream? They made Peter anti-Venom as well. Like, they're clearly not against the idea of tweaking the characters for their own story, and more power to them. I wish other people had the balls to make those changes rather than just playing it safe all the time.
Cletus Cassidy is in the game as a side mission, which means he'll probably be Carnage, like the source material. But Cletus is portrayed as some crazy cult leader in this game, instead of a solo, crazy serial killer.
You've literally just admitted that he's crazy in both adaptations. Oh, Jesus, what is this video?
But I guess it's not as drastic of a difference as the other symbiote characters, but it's also kinda odd how he gets to stay his proper symbiote role when everyone else gets shuffled around or deleted like Eddie Brock, as confirmed by the game's director, stating that Brock doesn't exist in this universe. Which is pretty odd given that he was the second person shown wearing it. I was also open to the symbiote leaving Harry and going to Brock later at the very least, but nope, he's just deleted, I guess.
So let me get this straight. After all the character development that Harry Osborn gets in this game, and, you know, the road he goes down to become a somewhat sympathetic villain, you would have preferred it if Eddie Brock came in at the last minute, turned into Venom, and was the final boss? What the fuck? You see what I mean about this guy writing the story and how it would have been way worse? Also, the Carnage point, I want to bring up that it's only foreshadowing that he's going to be Carnage. We don't actually know if he's going to become the villain or not. Honestly, I kind of hope that Rafe is just going to come in at the last minute, swoop that shit out of his arms, and then become Carnage, just to see this fucker's reaction. Oh, Yuri Watanabe being Carnage was so terrible, it's not accurate to my Spider-Man.
But yeah, let's wrap things up with something that I guess is sort of debatable, but I think it's just a petty excuse that's hanging on the puny threads of books that weren't that good.
So it's comic accurate then? It doesn't matter whether the books were good or not, the fact is, it's accurate to the comics in one form or another. Also, I have no idea what he's gonna say with the whole Black Cat being bisexual, like, who the fuck cares? Like, it's such a small detail. And she and Peter clearly aren't seeing each other in the games either. Like, sure, there's that element of flirty nature between the two, or at least in Black Cat's side, but she's clearly moved on. Like, what? It's not a surprise that she's not flirting with Peter as much, and she even states in the game that they've moved on.
And books that I could barely track down, that I'm pretty sure most people didn't read, including the writers of this game itself. Insomniac's bisexual Black Cat, who others have tried to justify by googling it and saying, oh look guys, she's been bisexual since the 90s. Well, I actually made the effort to dig for that detail, unlike these high-thinking, copying and pasting off of Google drones. I went to my illegal online comic site and found both of the stories that went far back. One was only part of an alternate universe with Spider-Girl, which was never canon, and then there's admittedly a canon example in what's Legitimately called the evil that men do.
This guy just makes it so easy to dislike him. Like, seriously, he can't help but go 2 minutes without insulting the audience of this product. And he's like, oh, I did actual research. Also, if it's 2 comic books, even if one of them's not canon, again, that is comic accurate, isn't it? Like, yeah, sure, it's not canon, but again, it did happen in the books. It's not like they're pulling random things out of their arse. And speaking of arse, fuck off with that zoom. You literally focused in on her arse and then zoomed out. Like, it's pretty obvious this guy is not at all objective. Like, he simps for Finn just because she's somewhat attractive in this game. Like, I don't know what else to say at this point.
But despite the book having some decent art,
and again, I feel like the pages of this guy's comic books are all crusty because of the amount of times he's wanked himself to sleep over these fucking images. Why is it a problem? You do realize not all women are this attractive. Like, this is clearly overly exaggerated artwork. Like, and funnily enough, it's not gonna land with the modern audiences because things are different. You don't just ogle at women anymore. They have their own place in the world, you fucking bigot.
it's sort of average at best work that doesn't even stick out because it's written by you. It's written by fucking cryboy Kevin Smith of all people.
Well, it clearly stands out to you, doesn't it? And it makes the thing in your pants stand out all the more because, you know, you clearly love the artwork of this comic. I can't possibly imagine why, though. Fucking hell.
Like, are you guys really going to cite a Kevin Smith book of all things? A sellout who has a crying montage over various forms of fiction, like him crying over The Last Jedi before this cuck did. Like, if it was written by anyone other than Kevin Smith, you cucks might have had a leg to stand on, but no.
I don't give a flying fuck if the author had 3 eyes, no legs, and blue skin. The fact of the matter is that they wrote the fucking comic. Like, why is their opinion suddenly invalid because they cry a lot and they do all this, you know, controversial shit on their public Twitter and what have you? Like, what the fuck? I don't get it. Like, I mean, to be fair, it's 100%, you know, within character for this guy to go after people's characters since, you know, he calls people cucks and all the rest of it.
I would have taken Dan Slott more seriously than this.
Really? You would have taken that more seriously? I have 2 very big, round, firm ideas why you would say that.
Black Cat pulls an Insomniac Silver Sable and takes Spider-Man out with his own web shooters. Like, what the hell is this? What a joke and a waste of my time researching for shit that you guys didn't even read or research yourself.
To be honest, I don't think you had time to read it. You were too busy creaming your crocs over the artwork of the comics. Although, seriously, again, Black Cat taking a W over Spider-Man. Like, you really think he's going to be going all out against one of his potential love interests? You fuck. Like, do you have no idea what circumstance is and how people don't always go all out every single fucking time they fight someone?
Despite being in opposition or defending the shit and using it as an excuse, some part of me doesn't really give too much of a crap about this game's adaptation of Black Cat being bi.
Yeah, probably because she's got big breasts and a nice arse. I mean, it's pretty much the reason why you liked Finn, despite the fact that she is as least comic accurate a portrayal of as you could possibly imagine.
But, as said in my last video, it really came off as an excuse to do some insane virtue signaling, given that her screen time and story was quite minimal, with her arc being that she won't use the Doctor Strange teleporting device to steal stuff, but she'll use it to see her girlfriend in Paris.
Yeah, because funnily enough, what people do in relationships is that they would bend heaven, hell, and the earth just to do anything for them. I mean, that's pretty much what people do in good relationships. It sounds like you haven't experienced that much.
But yeah, these writers probably didn't read the books themselves either and just did it to do it, to look progressive. They probably would have done this even if the book didn't exist, especially given their track record of straying from the source material with everything I've said so far.
Yeah, and once again, you're very inconsistent and borderline hypocritical with your comments about that, because You dislike MJ because she's actually a good character and she's not just a damsel in distress, yet you 100% simp for the fact that they turned Tinkerer from a bald, white old man into a somewhat attractive black female. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, dude.
On top of that game's overabundance of progressive propaganda shit that doesn't belong in a game that a bunch of 8-year-olds will play, as said in my last video.
And as I said in my previous video, I guess we can add homophobic to the list of things that you are guilty of and reasons why people shouldn't watch you. Again, it's set in New York in 2023. It would be less immersive if these elements weren't there. And again, that doesn't make the game woke. Being woke is when these things actively get in the way of good writing, which doesn't happen in this game since, as you said yourself, Black Cat has basically fuck all influence or part of the actual plot. She's just a side mission with Miles. I don't get what the issue is.
But yeah, from what I've read of in my books such as Birth of Venom or other shows or games, Black Cat has never really given me bisexual lesbian vibes, given that one of her main shticks is, you know, hitting on and seducing Spider-Man.
Google bisexual now, and you'll know what you'll find. Attracted to men and ladies. Almost as if her hitting on Spider-Man is 100% possible even if she's bisexual, you fucking moron.
Oh, and don't mention shitty modern Black Cat comics. I don't care about progressive shitshow modern comics where Wolverine and Iceman are both into boys, and Spider-Man gets cucked, etc.
Oh, so now you're just picking and choosing, which makes you all the more biased, saying how, oh, these comics are irrelevant because they go against my narrative as to how these characters should act, but then you criticize the game because they don't 100% follow the comics that you actually like. Interesting. I totally didn't expect you of all people to do that.
But anyway, that's everything just about. Maybe I missed some other things, but I tried to only name off differences that were a significant difference. But yeah, it's objectively a fact that Insomniac Spider-Man 2 is the least comic accurate Spider-Man game, or least comic accurate superhero game I have ever seen, on top of being the most woke one.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Just because gay people, black people, bisexual people, Ukrainian people are all in this game, it automatically makes it woke. Fucking idiot.
Now, for the final time, I'll clarify, I'm not one of those people who views comic book accuracy as a measuring factor for quality, although I can see some problems with things being a drastic change for the worse. And a lot of these changes in Spider-Man 2 are sort of for the worse.
So you don't believe that not being comic accurate is a bad thing when affecting quality, but you think that the changes that the Insomniac verse made were bad and for the worse? Okay, yeah, I see nothing wrong with that sentence.
And I don't believe this game topped many better examples of these characters, such as Spider-Man 3, Kraven's Last Hunt, Spider-Man 2's video games Black Cat, and Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I also ask that you guys have some more consistency given what I mentioned near the start of this video.
I mean, when we're talking about consistency, this guy is undeniably the king. I mean, he's consistently a moron, he's consistently a bigot, he consistently simps for some things, he consistently gets information wrong, and he's consistently a very unlikable human being. So yeah, I agree with him on this. He is the consistency king. Although, seriously guys, this video was more painful to make than the first, and he even dropped the fucking PS4 review, which looks like we know what next video is gonna be. I guess I'm gonna be making that at some point. Jesus Christ. If you manage to sit through all of this without passing out or punching the wall, then honestly, more power to you. Respect for you for joining me on this gauntlet, if you like. Feel free to subscribe, join the Discord server where you can talk to some sound folk and all the rest of it. I appreciate you guys being here as always. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one.